this way or that way, just a fraction of a percent, it doesn't work. The explosion itself. Okay, if it was 1 in 10 to the 60th power weaker, there'd be no life. 1 in 10 to the 60th power, that's 1 with 60 zeros, stronger, there'd be no life. The strong nuclear force could not vary more than by just a few percent. The gravitational constant, no more than 1 in 10 to the 40th power. The ratio of neutrons to protons. Neutrons and protons, if you remember your high school chemistry, I'm sure you do, are very similar, but one's a little heavier than another. And it takes 1,001 protons to make up the weight, the mass of 1,000 neutrons. And if it weren't that way, then all neutrons would become protons or vice versa, and there'd be no life. The bond angle of water is perfect. Otherwise, it would boil and freeze at the wrong temperature, no life, no universal solvent, etc., etc. Donald Page at Princeton University's Institute for Advanced Studies calculated what the odds would be of a universe taking a form suitable for life but by chance. And what he calculated was a number that would take more than 2 or 3 pens to write out. No, it's not that long. But it's 1, get this, in 10 to the 124th power. Now, that's a big number. I did a quick calculation. How many seconds are there in our universe, going back 15 billion years? Well, between 10 to the 17th and 10 to the 18th seconds. Okay, how many stars? About 10 to the 22nd. How many subatomic particles in all of, at the very least, 10 to the 80th power? This is 44 magnitudes larger. That may be a bit hard to relate to. Let me bring it down to earth once. My wife once won a contest. It was an offer in a cereal box, and she won $100. My mother found a $1,000 bill. Only one was hidden in New York City, and she found it. Well, someone was going to find it. That's not a miracle. Someone was going to find it. But that doesn't illustrate the odds we're talking about. No, I figured it out. We have a U.S. lottery. Let's count 300 million people. Each person gets a ticket. Each person pays $1. And you get $300 million if you win, but only one person wins. What are the chances somebody's going to win? 1. We shouldn't be surprised if someone wins. Okay, what are the chances you're going to win? 0. No, 1 in 300 million. But what if you won 2 times in a row? Well, now we're really talking. So instead of 1/3 in 10 to the minus 8, it's about 1 chance in 10 to the 17. Doing a little bit of rounding there. Very unlikely. 15 times in a row you'd have to win in order to get there. Now, if you want something more classical, Penrose at Oxford years ago, his analogy, blindfolded person throws a projectile across the universe at a 1-meter target and hits it by luck. There you go. And so this impression of design has not failed to impress the minds of thinking men and even atheists. And I was pretty interested in 2004 when Anthony Flew, professor of philosophy at Oxford, known for his public debates, even debated someone from the church I'm part of. In fact, I met someone last week who was there when he did that debate. He said Flew actually really won. He really won. That was interesting. But Flew himself gave up atheism. And I'll quote him, "The argument to design is stronger than when I first met it." That's classic British understatement. And so he crossed the floor. So the complexity, the fine-tuning powerfully suggest an intelligent designer. And actually, Flew came to believe because of the evidence of evolution. Evolution points directly to a God. It doesn't destroy faith, it actually can build faith. So most of you will interpret complexity as evidence of God's existence. I certainly do. My third reason, and final reason, morality. How can there even be right and wrong? You know, most of us agree on most issues. Don't murder. Don't rob the person you're sitting next to tonight. Rob him tomorrow. No, we agree on the basic things, but we do disagree on other things. How we define this. Okay, how should criminals be punished? Drug use, premarital sex, and so forth. It's really just a matter of opinion unless there's something outside our society, an anchor point, a reference point. Cancer took my father a few years ago. Diabetes took my sister's life when she was 20. Was that bad? Or was that good? Maybe the oncologist is the bad guy. Depends, I guess, if you're a cancer cell. So how do you evaluate these things? Builders use a plumb line or a level to determine. if they're building correctly. Opticians use an eye chart. We need something we can use to measure. Otherwise, all talk about good and wrong is going to be relative. This is very hard to talk about because in the United States, 80%, according to the Barna people, 80% of Americans don't believe in absolute values anyway. They believe in something more situational, more relativistic. My great-aunt Sally was raped when she was 99 years old. I met Dennis Nilsen, the serial killer who strangled, dismembered, and cooked 15 men. I met him before they caught him. I had no idea. How do we know what we feel viscerally actually corresponds to reality? I met Mother Teresa once. We talked for a while. That's normally acknowledged to be at the other end of the spectrum. But who's to say? Maybe she's the bad one. I've been to the killing fields of Cambodia. I've had my blood curdle by many things I've seen. And yet if morals are not ontologically rooted in reality itself, there is no basis upon which to stand and make these kinds of judgments. If there's no God, there are no true morals. And Nietzsche, the atheistic German philosopher, saw it clearly. If God is dead, we remove God from society. That means very simply that all talk of right and wrong is nonsense. It's more than just God who's died. Something deep in us has died. We need a God.
2 minutes.
I didn't say that, and this is important, that we cannot be moral without faith. I certainly don't mean to imply that someone who's an atheist is not a moral person. But morals themselves depend on the nature of reality, which depends on God. And just as the universe would not have come into existence without a God, there would be no morals without the nature of God. That is the third cogent reason to believe that God exists. Before I conclude, just a little bit about me, because we'll be going back and forth and learning. I grew up in a liberal Protestant environment, went to a Jewish high school. Most of my friends were Jews or atheists or both. I came to university and discovered Christianity, and I had to really fight for my faith. I was surrounded by people who had good minds and who asked questions, and that was very good for me. One thing I love about my faith is the opportunity to push myself in my mind mentally. And for these reasons, and I've just given you three reasons here, theism makes much more sense than the alternative. Why there's anything at all, why the universe exhibits the high degree of order it does. It better explains the existence of moral categories rooted in reality. It squares with my experience. It squares with the experience of millions. Not that that proves anything, but it does give some kind of confirmation. And if this is so, then the late Carl Sagan was wrong when he said the cosmos is all there is or ever was or ever will be. Because the fact is, a cosmos without a God is far more mysterious than a cosmos with a God. And so, for these reasons, I believe that theism is a better worldview than atheism for its vastly superior explanatory power.